Rise and shine, Fever Dreamers. Look alive, my friends. I'm V Spear.
And I'm Sami Sage.
And this is American Fever Dream, presented by Betches News.
The show that wants to celebrate the first pope that has done the nasty. I can't believe you let me that joke, Caroline.
Wait, no, the first pope that has directly survived the Reagan administration.
Ooh, okay. The first pope who thinks ketchup on a hot dog is a sin and that holy water is malort.
Okay, we're done with the Pope for now. Tara Palmeri, welcome to the show, friend. We had you on account of you are a Catholic, I believe, and we're doing only Catholic news now. So welcome.
I'm a Catholic schoolgirl. My parents made me suffer through that shit forever.
Okay, I have a question for you then, actually. Have you seen that Gen Z is they're becoming Catholic, right? And they're getting confirmed.
It's bizarre.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. I've been running away from it.
But they've been wearing... Their shoulders are showing in church. They have short skirts. I'm like, okay, Gen Z, that's not what I remember from Catholic school. What are your thoughts?
No, you had to stand tall and show where your fingertips dropped. Right. And that's where the length of your skirt was. And I have abnormally long arms. It's some weird former
You're
natural
trying to
selection.
Shrug.
Yeah, where I can walk on my arms. And so my skirt was always the longest. So I had to roll it up when I got off campus. And then it was like Britney Spears back in the day.
I know.
No, these girls are sassy, but I'm sure the church is just happy to have somebody land fillers or what am I saying? People filling their pews because it has been so dead in there. I just think it's weird.
They wear the rosaries. I was like, you don't wear the rosary. Yeah, it's
never.
No,
That's
I don't know how they're getting confirmed because the rules are so strict and it was so hard. And now I'm like, okay, we're just
Pope Francis. He was like, all are welcome.
Let's
Come
go.
In. Just
short skirts and all.
Drop the Bibles, go to confession, whatever.
My theory is that these people were inspired by the Met Gala theme. They thought that it was all heavenly bodies, Catholicism, yes. Selena Gomez, hair in a halo. They didn't realize that it has all this other stuff, the guilt, they're seeing stained glass and rosaries that look like chic necklaces.
Yeah.
They're not
Opulence.
seeing
opulence.
Yeah, they're not seeing
can't be on birth control.
The celibacy.
Women don't have a voice in the church, really. Yeah.
They got 3 votes, V, okay?
Yeah.
3 votes.
Hey, we'll take
after millennial.
We'll take it. We'll take our 3 votes for women in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
I think the Pope is
votes for
cool.
women.
I like this one. So far, I'm good with him. He walked back some of the stuff he said about the gays in 2012. And, it's a Catholic Church. I don't expect it to be progressive or super liberal or whatever, but as a person who was raised Catholic, I feel less trauma related to it than I did maybe previously. And I think if they would have went with a much more conservative Pope, I'm not sure that there would have been this window that I'm seeing on TikTok of people being like, maybe I should give it another try. Maybe it is a good place to find community for me and my kids, or try to have an appointment where every Sunday at least I know I'm going somewhere with some of the same people from my neighborhood and try to rebuild a little bit of community. I'm like,
when you say it like that, it doesn't sound so bad anymore.
it sounds good. Yeah.
But when I was, when we were kids, there were just so many rules.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were a miscreant, if you missed mass, you were reminded, and you had to go to confession.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think they've opened up the community. But then you have these hardcore people who are into the Opus Dei.
Oh. Yeah.
It's kind of, that's the JD Vance sort of alliance right now.
What do you know about Opus Dei?
Oh, Opus Dei, they're the ones that you always see in the movies where they beat themselves up and
Really?
It's dark. Yeah, it's the whipping, the
in
lashing.
Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, Opus Dei is the extreme version.
I have always said that Republicans have a humiliation kink, and this tracks if they're doing all of this kind of self-flagellation stuff.
Yeah, they're going into Catholicism in the most hardcore way, whereas Franciscans, I know I weirdly know about all the sects, but the Franciscans, which I believe Pope Francis was, they were all are welcome, it's a party, you know what I mean?
Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up. But then there's been this conservative movement where if we're gonna be Catholic, we're gonna be the most hardcore Catholic you could possibly be. The ones that Catholics are kind of they took it a little too far, and now it's being made into weird Dan Brown movies.
can only hope they bring back investing in art, you know? I mean, if we're going to go super hardcore Catholic, let's invest in massive art projects.
Let's commission some artists.
It's just like amazing how much power the United States has, because like the Catholic Church is the richest institution in the world when you think about it, like the properties they own, the churches, all of it. And now an American is on top of that institution. It's just like the vast global scale of American influence is incredible. Religion and politics, like what is going on right now?
Well, did you see that quote from one of Trump's, I believe one of his religious advisors, where he basically said that he wouldn't think that he didn't think that that there would be an American pope until America's political influence started waning, and he had said that like a few weeks ago or something, and then we have an American pope.
Does that mean our influence is waning? I think so.
I think that was what it was. I think that was what was implied by the by that prediction. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm very excited to see how Pope Leo takes the church and what he does. And I think that it's been very memeable having an American pope, at least.
It's been fun.
But Tara, we have you on like with the best timing ever. I know we ended up getting rescheduled, and honestly, I could not be happier because you just had an awesome interview on Thursday, I believe, with Lindy Li, the
I watched it 4 times.
Former Democrat.
I watch it like before I go to bed to literally calm myself down and believe that like the world is healing. I'm so serious.
Some people were like, it gave me so much anxiety I had to pop a Klonopin, and now I'm so happy to hear that on the flip side, some people feel like there is truth, there is light.
I was like, there is journalism.
Yeah.
There is just like, it was phenomenal. But Sami, tell folks about it in case they haven't watched it yet.
Thank you guys. That's very sweet.
So if people are unfamiliar with Lindy Li, she is a woman who was very active in Democratic politics. She was a fundraiser for the campaign. She said she raised tens of millions of dollars for both Biden and Kamala. She was, I had been following her. I think we had been following each other. So we had, maybe been, in touch over social media back in like years ago. And she basically like days after the election, after, defending Biden, defending Kamala, she basically like goes full MAGA and starts like talking about the Democrats, saying how they like covered up and lied and like
Calling them a cult.
Literally calling it a cult. All of a sudden talking about how she hates, how she is like anti-trans people and like anti-immigration, and starts really like doubling down on these culture war issues. And now she's been interviewed on right-wing media channels a lot. And now she has has a show with, I would think like 5 other conservative women where they, essentially do like culture war red meat kind of stuff. Yeah. So Tara, tell us, how did you end up interviewing her?
It's a weird world we live in.
Yeah.
And like, did you think it was going to go this way?
Thank you for that gracious setup. Yeah, Lindy Li is a mind blower in so many ways. I think she actually converted days after minutes after the election's results. Yeah. She had, exactly. I mean, she was out there literally like defending Biden to the death, being like, if you even mention his age, how dare you? You should be apologizing now. I mean, if you look at the former tweets from her and the communications, she claimed at that time that she was privately telling the party that she was concerned about him, but publicly she was out there like whipping it up like the worst of them. And so I asked my producer to like try to help me book some like more conservative voices, because I really do just want like a mix of people on my show. Like I really felt like, you know what? I want everyone to feel like they can come have a conversation. And he mentioned to me that there's this woman, Lindy Li, that is getting millions and millions of views on YouTube. And she was on Dr. Phil and Dave Rubin and all these places. And she claims that she has receipts. She knows where the bodies are buried. She was a Biden world insider and she knows everything. And, I interviewed a bunch of people about the Biden books, Jonathan Allen, Amy Parnes, Chris Whipple, Alex Thompson, and Jake Tapper have one coming out. So I'm like, all right, sure. I will be full disclosure, honest with the audience. I did not do my full vetting of Lindy Li because I just launched my show, the Tara Palmeri show, like last week. And it was just like craziness. So, but the night before I started looking at her tweets, I started watching some of her videos. I was like, this is a little weird. The fervor, the way she was speaking about immigrants as if they were parasites, and just like it was such a 180 from November that just something felt off. I asked my producer to have her send us some excerpts from her book because like I was going to interview her about this book that will burn down the Democratic establishment in her own words, saying like, you should be worried. So I was like, okay, let me just see the book. So I get like a PDF version with pictures of Kamala and all this stuff. And there's always a picture of her next to the president, the former President Biden, or next to the vice president. And she looks like, she's in the crush. There are people around her, but she says she's a personal friend of Biden. She said it on my show. Like she said that she was allowed in places in the White House that others weren't. In the first few pages of the book, which I read, like she says she's taking calls from the Lincoln bedroom. I'm like, isn't that for like top donors? She like,
or anyone? I don't think.
I don't think since Obama anybody's really been in there. Yeah, geez. Oh my God.
It was like, and there were just like other like details about like how she was at like the Kamala like outside of the Kamala Harris party, but then decided that she would go and do media instead because like her life breathes off of media, and that like she saw it as political capital, and like it was kind of like to me it was a little deranged, like the way that she was looking at the entire political complex in like a very way of like how to insert herself so it becomes about her.
Yeah.
So she can write the book that's about her life. And I kept asking her like, what makes your book so different than the many other Biden books that are out there? I doubt there's much left in these books that will like blow the roof open or anything like that. And she was like, it was about me. Like, I have firsthand knowledge. They don't. Theirs is secondhand. Like, I talked to Valerie. That's the president's sister. Yeah. I talked to Ashley, his daughter. And I was like, really? How did I never hear about you before? How is the first time I'm hearing about you through my producer? And so I just became like very suspicious upon like and also I asked her like, who's publishing your book? First question. It's going to become a movie. Nobody's going near these books.
I thought you were actually like really well versed in her because that was your first question, because that would have been my first question, because she's written about how like she has, this book coming out and how there's like a movie attached to it. And I'm like, first of all, in no world is it like you get a producer who wants to do your movie before you even know who's writing your book. If there's multiple publishers vying for it and she's been writing it, it would already have been like scooped up. It's not like it wouldn't have been after all these other books are coming out. And the other thing that I thought that you really called that you actually didn't necessarily call her on, but I have a question just sort of like logically. She talked about how she wasn't being paid and how like because like she wasn't being paid, she's more credible because she wasn't being paid. But in my view, I'm like, well, then now you're less credible because you were saying this without actually needing to say it. And then you immediately switched. So at the time, you must have really believed it. The fact that she wasn't paid is actually like worse for the fact that she was saying those things. Because it's not like she was employed by the campaign. She could have just stopped if she thought that they were covering something up.
Well, you say that to her, right? Let's play that clip where Tara says to her, you didn't have to do this.
Over
it's
time.
fair. People can totally change, but the question is, you worked for a campaign.
I didn't have a choice because I was a
nobody has to work.
You're not getting it. Politics is my entire life. What do I do without politics?
So you don't believe what you're doing?
Are you like, should I become a teacher or something? Are you asking me to change my profession?
I actually think that if you're gonna stand up and speak for other people as a surrogate, if you're gonna work for a campaign, and now you're going to come out with a book, like you should believe in what you're saying. Like if you didn't believe in it then, how are we supposed to believe you now?
This is my truth. Take it or leave it. I don't need you, Tara Palmeri. I don't need you to believe me. This is just my truth. And I have the receipts. It's up to the American people. And I know that people know that I'm telling the truth. Like I have the receipts, and every single day, the facts and reality vindicate me.
To me, the most shocking moment in that clip is when she goes, "What? Can I be a teacher? Oh, God forbid." As if being a teacher is such a terrible thing. Politics is the highest calling in life, by the way. If you heard that or not. But
no, I'd much rather be a political consultant who like tries to fleece the American people into thinking that this nominee or that someone is someone that they're not. Like it's such a higher standard.
Where did she come from, though? I mean, she's fairly young, right? She was born in like 1990. She's fairly young. And she was on TV a ton during this last campaign. I know it's like pretty easy to book media interviews. I'm like, who's your publicist? How did you get to be a surrogate? Because everything that I've seen, she was at like large gatherings, right? Like, okay, sure, maybe you got to take a picture with the president at Christmas, or maybe you got to take a picture with Kamala at any number of the events where there's a photo line. But as far as being in any, I never heard of her being in the Oval Office. She was never at any of the creator stuff that got special access. So I'm like, where did she come from and how did she become this voice?
Okay, here's what I've pieced together based on her own comments and what I've heard from my reporting. Because I had to do some reporting on this before I had her on. So I called some people, right? One person who works in the White House under the Biden administration kind of described her as like a political tourist. She comes from a wealthy family. She raised some money. And because of that, she's able to go in and get like pictures at like the, White House events that when they open up the like,
Easter egg roll, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, Easter egg roll. Like the picture of her in her, I think her YouTube handle or her X handle is her standing at the White House press briefing, like in the podium as the press secretary. I mean, I'm sure that was her dream.
Like we all take that.
I've had that picture.
Yeah, I'm sure it was part of her dream to be like the White House press secretary. I think this was to her a way of becoming famous, of being associated with famous people. She probably liked being on cable news. She probably liked people thinking she was important. She claims she's wealthy. She comes from a wealthy family that owns real estate in Philadelphia. She says, I'm talking from my penthouse. Like, I'm a wealthy woman. I don't need to be doing any of this.
But didn't she say that she grew up with nothing and she's very fiscally conservative because she doesn't like to spend anything?
I mean,
and I understand people can make money during life, over their lifetime. But that doesn't. Like
her father, she said, has buildings, and they donated that space to the Biden team. So apparently, her family, like maybe they started off with no money coming from China, and now they have properties. But like, regardless, it's just like I think she would have actually liked to have been hired by the campaign.
Yeah.
I think her dream would have been to be the press secretary. I think if Kamala won, she would have never become conservative.
No,
she
probably
would
not.
Have stayed exactly where she was. And
she is another one of Princeton's finest. She graduated from Princeton, which is getting a bad rap now with like Pete Hegseth having gone there, Lindy Li having gone there. I'm like, Princeton, we got to start putting out some better alumni right now.
Yeah,
true.
They're standing up to the administration though, so
not as much as Harvard.
Yeah, well, the Lindy Li story is like a very fascinating one. It's just a certain type of like political actor who can make it in this entertainment complex that exists online. Like she does get millions and millions and millions of views. There is an entire world out there that looks at her and when she speaks, they're like, she was there in the room. She knew everything. And they have never heard my podcast. May have heard what we know.
Are conservatives going for her? Is it like, because I know Democrats obviously see through that this is like a mess and whatnot largely, but where she's going with this conservative sort of grift that she's on now, are they accepting her or is this part of like the show? Like how much are Republicans actually even wanting her on their team?
She was on Dr. Phil. She was on Dave Rubin's show. She's got a show on David Patrick Betts Network.
Okay.
So I think like there's like entertainment value in her. Like it's very every party loves a convert, right?
Yeah.
But like this is like some intense conversion. I think their first show of the Talk 4 or whatever it's called. Yeah, it was last week. Her Take. That's it.
Okay.
Her Take. And she spent a lot of the time calling immigrants parasites. Really
so
nice.
it's just this culture war kind of nonsense.
But she is an immigrant. She said, "Oh, my family did the right way." Okay, well, a lot of people who quote unquote did it the right way are people who are being persecuted by this administration, who came legally, who came under the policies. But we're not here to litigate immigration. But what I do want to kind of ask you about like this story and how it's kind of emblematic of this like almost like this parasite ring that forms around the actual like political actors. And you've been around them a lot. You obviously came up in trad media. That's what we call it on here. And are you seeing
trad media?
Are you seeing like I feel like there's a kind of a mixing of those two industries, like the cottage consultant industry and sort of the like pundit cable news industry. And you have obviously decided to go independent. How have you sort of like observed those worlds merging together and like, kind of disconnecting from the actual American electorate? And like, how did that play into your decision to separate from it?
It's a really good question. Like, I just would come home and see my father, who's like in his 60s, watching YouTube like all day long. My cousin's 39. She's like, I get my news from TikTok. Everyone I loved and cared for, like, they were not exactly. She follows UV. Like, everybody I know and love that is not in this like political industrial complex of news, whatever you want to call it, legacy media, consulting class, they were not getting their news from the places that these people were so focused on, frankly, during the election. They were getting their news from socials, essentially social media. And so it just made me realize, I started this like about a year ago. Like, even though I just launched this company a few months ago, I came to UV and I asked you for advice. I was like, how do I get into your world? Like, how do I start talking to the people that you speak to? Because you are where the audience is right now. And so it sort of prepared me from leaving Puck, which is new media, but it's like still has some legacy, like, feels to it. And because you're really never like truly like you until you create your own thing and you go out into this space. And we are so reliant right now on social media to even just like bring eyeballs and traffic and like get our message out there. So I just felt like everyone was missing the mark, especially during the election too, to be so focused on legacy media, where now I'll tell you, it is so much easier to book guests for podcasts. I'm sure you feel the same way too, especially from Democrats who like, we're sort of like, we'll take the Meet the Press interview. I feel like now I'm being hounded by them. Yeah. And I would rather have like a Republican on my show, although I think Republicans are a little bit like nervous now about going on podcasts because even they realize like it's not necessarily like a safe space or like they want to have control. Because ultimately, like with the legacy media, there was a feeling of like when I walk into that room and sit down on that couch, like I have control over the conversation. Whereas when we have conversations with people, like it can go anywhere. And this is like this is real life. We don't have 100 producers in our ears. We don't have all this stuff going on. Like this is our conversation. So it became real and authentic. And that can be really hard for people who live in a space of talking points and like stage moments. Lindy, she has an entire place that she exists, but she was first really propped up by Fox News. Right. Now, I doubt that she's going to be on there much more, but like she first was like a creation of like, we have this person who was a Biden insider who now wants to come out. She comes out on Fox. But in some ways, like more people probably have seen her online than they've seen her on Fox.
Well, so
I found her as like resistance lib person who was just like tweeting out like things that were very just pro-Dem, almost in like a factory way.
In a propaganda way. And that's where she lives, right? So she's living in this world of collecting things that perform well online and repeating them and repeating them and repeating them and repeating them. Same thing with her even dropping. I knew she was a liar when she said, well, I talked to Valerie, because that is an insider's way, Joe Biden's sister, that is an insider's way of proving that you were close to the president is to drop Valerie's name or Ashley's name, right? It wasn't, she didn't say, I spoke to Jill Biden, because that could have been posed. She was trying to make it seem like she was like second level, very involved with the family. And I am making it my personal effort to get your interview with her in front of as many people as possible, because I think one is a great, I mean this seriously, it's a great lesson in curious journalism, which I think is what people are asking for. You just were asking her questions about things that she had said were true, and then she was falling apart. And I thought for 1 second she almost started to cry, and I was like, she's going to stop the interview. But then she kept going because she's so addicted to the attention. It was when after the teacher comment, when she was like, this is my life, this is about me. And when you were like $37 million, and she's like, oh, it's a ghostwriter.
You were also a fundraiser. You said that you raised $37 million.
No, that was a placeholder number.
Oh, how much did you actually raise?
And that was a draft of the book that I told your producer not to share.
Oh, no, I found that online, actually.
No, really? Then I never said 37.
Oh, okay. Well, let's say it again. How much money did you were a fundraiser and you were a surrogate. A surrogate, for everyone who is just listening, is someone who goes on TV and supports and promotes the candidate, the party, or on podcasts, et cetera, radio. But fundraiser, how much money did you actually raise for Harris and the Biden campaign?
Millions, and I didn't just raise for the campaign. I raised for the super PACs too.
You have to watch it because watching it is, I'm telling you, I've watched it like 4 times, if not more. One, it's a lesson in like curious journalism for all the people out there who are trying to do this work and have only ever watched TV as their example for how to do journalism. I think this is a phenomenal lesson for people. And then in addition, it destroys this narrative of these type of propaganda, social media grifter people. And there are many of them out there, not just in my opinion, her and the way she operates, but there are millions of them on TikTok who come out and say crazy stuff. They lie about access they had or didn't have. They took a picture on the photo line with Kamala Harris and then they try to say that they were a part of the campaign and they weren't, or they're trying to use moments that were from the public and make them seem private to like raise their profile. And this interview, I think, really breaks down or at least pulls the curtain back a little bit for the public on what is true and what actually happens and the way that other people might be misusing photos or moments to make themselves seem more credible than they are as well.
Totally. And Jamie Harrison, who is the former DNC chairman, tweeted after the interview came out the receipts, because, you know, Lindy said she has receipts that will burn down the establishment. And in one of his receipts, days before the election, by the way, days before her conversion, you know, dear Jamie, can I please get in the photo line to have a picture with Vice President Kamala Harris? It doesn't sound like someone who's telling the party, like, we're going to go down. You guys are a bunch of crooks. This is nefarious, as she claims that she now says. Like, honestly, it was just like, it wasn't an inquisition. And the fact that she became so enraged was a tell.
How did you hold yourself? Like, because so many people confront narcissists who are gaslighters and liars.
Did you know it was going to be like
how did you
really
hold
good when
yourself?
You were doing
Yeah,
no.
Because you really held your face and you held your energy and you gave her the space to hang herself in many ways. But like, what was going through your mind?
How is she holding her face like this?
Can I be completely honest with you guys? You're going to think I'm nuts. I thought it was such a train wreck of an interview that I did keep my face like pretty like neutral because like I'm a journalist. Like I'm not there for a fight. You know what I mean? She might want to like have like a tantrum and whatever, lose it on my camera. You know what I mean? On my show. Yeah. But I sent it to some friends. I'm like, guys, is this too much of a train wreck to put on like on the internet? Is this too much? And they were like, no, this is like a Law and Order episode in which you sit the person down and you expose what like is real. And I was like, okay, phew. Because I was like, is this too much? I thought even for people to see a human being completely unravel the narrative of their life and who they are. And I didn't intend on doing that. Like, I really wasn't a gotcha. I'm telling you, I was in a way like, that was sort of the beauty of the moment, was the fact that I've been so overwhelmed with trying to like build this new product of like the Tara Palmeri show, the Red Letter, that one. Like by the time this came across my desk, I probably had 2 or 3 hours preparing time to prepare, and it was late at night. Mm-hmm. And I think I had like just had gotten like a cease and desist or something from Sean Spicer for zero reason at all. So I was doubly. So by the time I was talking to her, I was just like, wait, you like. What? The Lincoln bedroom? You know what I mean? What parts of the White House were? You know, it was like my brain. I was on like another level. Yeah. Like, I was on like another level of like. I was just like, okay, I'm going to deal with another person that I consider to be sort of like grifting off of the political ecosystem that we live in right now. You know, making a career based on like what I would consider things that they probably don't believe in. Sure. To just, I mean. Listen, it's her truth in her own words. Don't want to take it away from her. I'm just asking questions. But when someone says to you, "This is my truth," you can take it or leave it. Like that's not the that's never a good line.
The truth.
That's never a good line. Yeah, the truth is a different line.
So, question about the actual So this is all around Biden and the quote unquote. She's calling it a cover up. I hear a lot of people calling it a quote unquote cover up, and I think that there's different. You know, when the broader public, like say outside the Beltway, hears that, I think they think about that as like this big conspiracy where like everybody in the Democratic Party knew and was like kind of like quote unquote hiding it and just because they wanted him to run. And you've obviously spoken to pretty much all the people who are doing like real sourcing on this and talking about like what was going on with Biden between 2023 and 2024. So based on what you've been, hearing about, because, Lindy Li is an important fixture, but there is also this fact of like what was going on in the Biden administration and what happened with 2024. So from all the people you've been speaking to, like when people say cover up, what do they mean by that? And like, do you feel that there was a quote unquote cover up? Like, what do you really feel like went on here?
I don't think this was like some sort of Comet Pizza conspiracy thing going on where like, you know what I mean? Right. Like this isn't like some QAnon thing that happened, but I do think that there were a lot of people at the highest levels of power who wanted President Biden to run again and to win the White House. For whatever reasons, they told themselves that helped them go to sleep at night, which was, we do not want Donald Trump to win again. He's the only person who can beat Donald Trump, which is something that I'm sure that President Biden has said publicly and probably told himself privately as he went to bed every night, knowing that he was 81 years old. It. Exactly. And probably in his mind uses that. And it's amazing how you can convince yourself that you're doing the right thing over and over and over again. I do think there were a lot of people that were close to him that should have spoken out and said something and said, like, you know what? When Dean Phillips came out, like everybody should have been like, okay, let's do the primary. Let it happen. And like that didn't happen. And the fact that like Gavin Newsom was like, no, he's good. He's great. He did that years before. And after the debate, people still vociferously, like they backed him, and they should have just said like, okay, those 6 weeks were so critical. And I think if like decisions were made during those 6 weeks that people were just waiting on Biden. And I do think a lot of people saw Biden and they saw, not even think, I know that people saw Biden. As much as his team kept him closed off from the public, they saw him and they were like, I don't know, it isn't great. But the American people, more importantly, saw Biden. 2/3 of them said in poll after poll after poll after poll, he's too old to run. And nobody listened to that. And that's a problem. So that's not even really a cover-up. It's just like it's like we're feeding you dog food and you have to eat it.
So when you say like a lot of people, because I think about this and I'm like, okay, we saw Biden at an event where he looked like quite feeble, but like my feeling is like, okay, I see him like that day, then you see him at the State of the Union and he was doing okay. And so it's like, we're like, when you say a lot of people, is it like hundreds of people, or is it like the 5 people around him that like knew that it was like he was consistently unable to perform or like to the level that the American people expected, and they were the ones who were just like making sure that people only saw like glimpses of it? Because you're right, like the American people saw no different than like what we saw. Like the difference is that they were just like not giving the benefit of the doubt. And I think a lot of people who were closer to it were like, okay, well, his people say he can stay up till 9. Like, it's just very, so I guess it's like, how do they get that trust back when, it's so kind of paints the party with a broad brush.
It's not great. Like when Robert Hur came out with his conclusion that like Biden couldn't be prosecuted because he would be just seen as a feeble old man, like that should have been a moment too in time. Right. And I that the trumpets went out and people who would be interested came out and then instead though the party attacked Robert Hur, someone that they held up as like a beacon of like being a fair person, and like they were like, he's always been a conservative hack. It's like, well then why did you guys choose him as a special counsel? There were a lot of moments that were passed when people could have actually suggested like maybe it's time to move on. State of the Union, yes, it's an example in which Joe Biden, as former president, got through a speech and he delivered it. An hour-long speech, which is hard. Even for me, I'm like, my voice is cracking right now. But here's the problem. We shouldn't be sitting on the edge of our seats as Americans wondering if our president is going to get through an hour speech. And so like the standard was so much lower. As a member of the press, he did not give any access to journalists. No access at all. Like, it was incredible. And people that worked in the press office will talk about this openly, that there was they didn't do the Super Bowl interview. That's a telltale sign.
He did have creators, though, and this is my problem even with the way Caroline Leavitt does it. he did have creator interviews, right? That he knew were going to be super hyper friendlies because they were short. You get 8 minutes, 10 minutes. You already had to say what your question was going to be. You got to do your picture and you got to leave, right? And so I think that in some ways affected things, certainly, like where we say he wasn't doing press interviews, but he was doing these creator-friendly things. And even in those, it was like, okay, he's slower, but he's with it, but he's slower, but man, he really looks old. Are you guys, you sure this is going to be okay? This is all right? All right. And I think that's my problem with Caroline Levitt also, is the idea that the creators were supposed to be auxiliary to the press, right? And like just grow the amount of audience we have. And there's been a replacement, especially with what she's doing right now with this press briefing seat where 35 of them are just straight loyalist creator propagandists, right? And I think there may have been a small permission structure that started with Biden administration around like giving creators all of this super exclusive and cutting the press out. And at this point, it's sort of like, okay, the press and creators need to work together to ensure that we're telling the most whole truth and that it doesn't get any kind of more partisan or worse.
I think it's interesting, too, the way that they're using creators. It was really crazy to see Sean Spicer sitting in the front row asking Caroline Levitt, how dare you have the establishment press in your briefing room? Like, what is going on here?
You are crazy and too old, and also we're on Dancing with the Stars, Sean Spicer. Don't think I forgot about your rumba sleeves. And why are you so like this? Like, you're a professional person, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend being in there, who's way too old to be in there. Like, and by old, I don't mean age-wise, because there are older people who are really interesting, wonderful creators. I mean old in the industry. This man's been in D.C. for all of these years. You shouldn't be taking a creator seat that's meant for actual new media, which might be someone younger in their career or new to independent or whatever.
Have you thought about going in there and sitting in the new media seat?
Absolutely not. And I would never get picked because the process of getting picked requires you to pre-screen questions and have her look at your whole account. And I'm not trying to put my name on any list that's in the Trump warehouse. Oh my God, the Trump warehouse.
Bulwark, though, they put someone forward. Bulwark
I think that they would, and that makes sense to me. I think that Axios is certainly in there, and they're like pretty new media. But as far as creators go, they're not going to put Harry Sisson in there. They're not going to put me in there. They're not going to put.
They should put Harry Sisson in there. If I were them, I would put Harry Sisson in there, like as a foil, kind of.
It's
but
not
the thing
for
that
me.
bothers me about this is that, like, I think from the older generation, I think that they don't really know what to make of like creators versus independent media versus like what you're doing basically versus like trad media, quote unquote, that's someone like Axios, where there's this perception that like the creators or someone who's independent should be kind of like a megaphone for them, like that they're just there to like amplify their at least that's how like the Biden administration treated creators. I feel like I think it's kind of how the Democrats are treating creators.
That's why I haven't done it, because it's still like that, where it's like, hey, we're going to line you up at State of the Union in the basement and have 15 different creators do the same interview with the same politicians, and like it's the same thing over and over and over, or do a trend over and over and over. I think it's actually sort of like bastardized the creator and independent media experience the way that they're treating it right now. And it's also greatly taking away from the truth that the American public is getting.
Yeah, I guess this is what they always thought was going to, they thought they were hopeful that it would be like a press that would be more, I guess open to their
friendly
ideologies. I thought that the Epstein binders, what they did when they handed out those allegedly classified binders, just binders said the word classified, and they were all Virginia Giuffre Roberts court documents, public documents, and they had used the creators as props. And that's what it's starting to look like, that they're using them like props. But inside there was nothing classified about it. And we still haven't gotten anything new since. I've covered this story, like the Epstein story, and like I worked with Julie K. Brown, who was like, we actually co-produced a podcast together called Broken on Jeffrey Epstein. And we were both kind of in agreement that we think that Jeffrey Epstein was killed. I think it was the cop, like the person that CBS identified as a possible person who would have killed him on 60 Minutes. There were a lot of things that happened during that period of time where, like, the guards were gone, the tapes was missing. Off. He wasn't the type of guy to kill himself. Like, he just wasn't. He believed he was bigger than God. No. Like, he had all the money in the world. He probably thought he could get out of it again, just like he did the first time. And pedophiles, first of all, do not do well in prison. Right. So whether someone was paid or not paid to kill him is what it is. And if there was anyone that was paid, you know, it happens where people are paid in prison to kill people.
Mm-hmm. Also, it was in so many people's interests for him to be dead. Like, there was almost no one who, like, would be better. Maybe, like, the victims, that they would get, like, some sort of justice. But there were so many more powerful people who could have arranged for his demise, who needed that to happen. So it's just like, when you look at the likelihood of it, especially against what I think is, like, kind of the most important, that his likelihood of actually taking his own life was very small, because, like, that's kind of the crux of it. It's, I think it's like, you'd have to kind of suspend disbelief to think that there weren't more people who would have wanted him to be dead than himself wanting to be dead.
Yeah. I mean, also the way that he got off the first time around, where he just, like, literally had an ankle bracelet and got to hang out
and he could go to work.
Yeah. It was like, he knows that the justice system works in a different way for him than the rest of the world and for the rich and powerful. So why would he think that he wouldn't get off this time too?
I think you make a good point, though, that it doesn't necessarily mean it was like the top down deep state kill. Could have just been that they kill pedophiles in prison. And that's,
they do.
And somebody
they don't
just
do well.
decided, you know what, I'm not letting this guy out, or I'm going to do my own version of vigilante justice, or somebody.
Wasn't he
there's
in,
a lot
like,
of people
holding? He was in, like, he wasn't in prison yet, right?
He was in prison.
No, he was in El Chapo's jail in downtown.
Oh, he was.
In downtown
like...
Brooklyn. Oh no, sorry, downtown Manhattan. Ghislaine was in Brooklyn. I used to always walk by because I live in Brooklyn, and I'd be like, "Hey, Ghislaine," knowing she was right there on the other side while I was working on a Ghislaine Maxwell podcast about her.
Yeah. Well, the fact that she's still alive, I think, is indicative that they didn't just take out the whole operation, right? But
I mean, there's so many things we will maybe never know, but I would love to know. Is this, Tara, is this what kind of, like, motivates you? Like, do you want to just, like, get to the bottom of it? Like, why did you want to be a journalist?
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I live for. Like, that was the best. That investigation to Jeffrey Epstein was, like, the most fulfilling year or so of my life. Working with the victims, like Virginia, we traveled all over the country together trying to stand up her story. And a lot of the people that we spoke to ended up being used as witnesses in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And they're just, like, issues that I, like, really deeply believe in. And, like, one of them is, like, essentially, like, justice for people who, you know, are women, children, poor, you know, sexual abuse survivors. And just, like, this is, like, it's just, like, my heart is, like, I like politics. I love politics in the sense that I'm fascinated by powerful people and the people that exist around them and that ecosystem. And I think, like, we need to talk about issues, but, like, I am passionate about investigative journalism that helps people that, like, don't have access to the resources to defend themselves. And I like to get down to the bottom. I mean, I feel like we live in a world that is gray, and there are so many gray things, and I think we have to acknowledge that more, especially as journalists, because otherwise people come to us being like, I want the answers and make me feel safe, but, like, the world is not a safe place. And, like, actually, Via, I think you do a really great job of unpacking really complicated topics and making people feel like that they're accessible in a way that actually I think you're far superior at it than I am. I'm kind of more of, like, I call my sources. I try to get the information that I think other people don't have, or I try to get people together that maybe don't normally want to talk, or I speak to people that don't normally talk to journalists, and that's I try to do that to contribute to, like, the wealth of, like, information in the public domain. I think we all have our own skills and passions, and we try to follow it. And honestly, I'm in, like, an experimental stage of my life right now. I'm having fun. Like, I just left having a boss for the first time in my entire life, essentially, and it feels free. Like, I felt for so long like I was in some sort of, like, cage. And it feels like, oh, I can just kind of go with my gut and just ask the kind of questions I want and write the things I want to write. Like, I find this person to be fascinating. I want to sit down and talk to this person. Yeah. I like this topic. I want to go into that topic. Whether the audience wants to come along for the ride, you know, that's the risk I take. But, you know, you've created so many amazing things through Betches, like V, like you're you know, international superstar, just following your gut and where you want to go. And I just think, like, that's the beautiful moment that we're in right now, is that, like, people will come along for the ride with you as you're exploring and following your passions.
And I'm like a gateway drug to the Tara Palmeri style of journalism, right? Like we all have our place. I'm like, I consider myself very top of the funnel, right? Get you interested, make you feel smart, give you the language you need, make you feel safe. Then maybe you go to Sami. Sami gives you a little bit more deeper on the morning announcements and the big deal of the day. Then now we're really feeling, now we're ready for the Tara Palmeri show because we've heard Lindy Li up here. We've learned a little bit more here. Now we're ready for the interview, but it all is working. This is what I like about this new emerging creator world. Then you can go to the Atlantic, right? But the emerging creator world in new journalism and the way that's intersecting the way that we do, I think is hopefully what people start to invest in and sort of raise up out of, you know, sort of the muck of where we're all kind of trying to raise up out of right now, which is that it can work together and that there is not one authority, one voice, one channel you listen to. It's a collection. And you get a little bit from everyone, and then you start to realize, like, who's in community with each other, and do you want to be a part of that community? Like, a lot of folks who listen to our show are like, I like your show, I learn a lot, but I like you and Sami's friendship, and I like being a part of it for the week, and I like just listening and, like, kind of taking a break and, like, you know, having it on while I'm walking around Home Goods or while I'm, like, commuting or doing something. It's, like, a very low-stakes listen, but if you hear something here that you're really interested in, maybe then you do go listen to Kara Swisher's take on it, right? Which is going to be much more hard and like have more details or whatever. But I think women are certainly leading the creator space and this run into new media and what that means to have community and build something fresh. And I'm excited about it.
It's so true. I mean, I talk to people, obviously, like the executives in like the corporate world, and they're like, they say it's really hard to find women that are in the political space right now. And I hope that like what we're doing, the three of us, like I hope it encourages more women to come forward because there are enough bro pods out there, okay?
Yes.
There are enough of them.
We don't need a Joe Rogan of the left, okay? We've got plenty of that.
We don't need any more bros.
We need a totally new
Maybe
thing.
if we add all the women together, we could get one Joe Rogan of the left.
Yeah, there we go. And then she would get canceled for doing something toxic, I'm sure, because that's a toxic style of...
But Joe Rogan won't.
No.
Yeah.
Certainly
Lindy Li
not.
is Joe Rogan of the former left.
She might be. She might be. Well, Tara, we have a game before you go that I was digging. Okay, I was digging into your past, and way back in the beginning of your career, it's your game. It was called Yay or Nay.
Yays or nays?
Yays or nays. Okay, so how did you tell us about when you play the game?
I'll explain this a little bit. So back when I was like 22 years old, I graduated from college early and I started working at the CNN as a news assistant, which means you run around and give everyone coffee and like scripts and, you know, whatever. And so I was
oiling the machine.
Yes.
Oh yeah, taking everyone's cards in the green room. Like I'm 22 years old. I've got like my little, you know, got my website with my blog and my investigative journalism. I was doing investigative journalism at the time. I was like going on the Hill and like being like, look, lobbyists are hiring line standers to help them cut lines for healthcare hearings, and like I was always a little bit of like a, you know, shit stirrer, as you might say. So but it was 2009, the economy was falling apart, and I was like, I need a job. So the editor for the Washington Examiner comes in. He's on frequently. His name is Chris Stirewalt. Now he's got a show on News Nation. He was fired from Fox for calling Arizona for Biden, by the way.
Oh, I was like, I know that name.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. And so I was like, Chris or Mr. Stirewalt, I was like, I could be a freelance journalist for you. Like, I can write, I can do this, I can do that. I just need a job, please. And he never called me for like 6 months, and I was mortified. And he would come on all the time, and I have to be like, hi. And I was so mortified.
I'm the one who wants a job.
Yeah, I was so mortified, but I didn't stop. And then he called me one day, and I was like in a mall in New Jersey, which is where all Jersey girls hang out when they go home to tell their parents, like, I think it's over for me. I think my jaunt in journalism is about to end.
Was it the Palasites or the Freehold Mall? Which one were you at?
It was the one.
Short Hills Mall.
This was a special one because I was bringing my 10-year-old brother at the time to this like tropical cafe. Okay. So I have to think it was like in
the
Japan.
Rainforest Cafe.
Yes, the Green Forest Cafe. So we actually crossed the border from Jersey to New York for this one.
Wow. Okay.
I lived on the border. Yeah. So I open the fortune cookie and it says, take the next offer you receive. I still have that fortune cookie. Oh. And I get a call from none other than Chris Stirewalt within a few hours while I'm in the mall walking my brother around. And he says, would you ever want to write a column? It's like about celebrities that come through Washington, D.C. We're calling it yays and nays. It's not a big deal, whatever. And I was like, he kind of downplayed it. And I was like, it would be a dream. And so I thought, in my mind, he says it's about celebrities coming through D.C. And I'm like, no. You have just given me a page 6 column.
Yes.
I am going to write about everyone in town, the most powerful people, and I'm going to write items. And like the stuff was getting picked up by the real page 6 and by Drudge and all these other places. And I was like getting Gawker, and everybody was like, who's this girl in DC who's like becoming like a little wonkette-ish? And so then I got a job at the real page 6. But I did that for about a year. And it was really, really fun. And so I turned what was like kind of like a page in a newspaper you probably haven't even read or listened to in so long into like a fun place and to have for some mischief.
Yes.
And
That's
yeah,
great.
so I ended up moving to the New York Post from there, and it was a weird pit stop in the way. And people were like, "How did you end up as a gossip columnist?" I'm like, I took whatever job I could get and I turned it into what I thought would be the best way to break through, especially in the time of the internet. Actually, you would appreciate this, V. One of my pieces where I was widely mocked, but got to become friends with the founder of Grindr was when Grindr came out. I had heard that like Barney Frank was on it and he was using it at the gym. And like I was like, I'm not going to write about that because it's just rude. You know what I mean? To out somebody on Grindr, especially when it was so new. And this is like during Don't Ask, Don't Tell era of Obama years. And people were talking about like whether this should still be a thing. And so I went around to the Pentagon, the White House, and the Capitol with my Grindr and being like, well, there's a hotbed of activity on Grindr right now in the White House. And like, it turned into this viral video where everyone was just mocking me mercilessly. But like in the end, the Grindr guys were like, this is amazing. We love it. We love it. And that was just like a flavor of the kind of stuff I did. I didn't out anyone, but I just thought like, why the hell? But I made it a bigger point. I'm like, why do we have Don't Ask, Don't Tell when everyone's clearly on Grindr? Like, this is absurd.
Gotta get the girls and the gays. That's the best audience. That's the best audience. It's the most joyful plays. Well, we're going to play a version of Yay or Nay, which is our version of just asking you yay or nay to certain things that are going on around the world. So here we go. So first, yay or nay, airline safety.
Are they going well? That's the...
Is it going well?
Nay. Terrifying.
So scary. Are you flying or are you driving more now?
I have to fly on Friday, but I get really nervous, especially because I have friends that work in aviation. They're like, "It's bad, girl. It's worse than you think."
Yeah,
and
I drive.
I'm like, Newark Airport.
Yeah, it's shut down.
I used to fly. Yeah,
Don't go to
just
Newark.
fly from there.
No, I drove to New York, and I drive to Harvard every time because I just airline safety.
Congratulations
dangerous.
on that, by the way.
Thank you.
A fellow, very fan at Harvard.
I know. She's a university girl. Okay.
Ooh. A faculty.
Okay, next one. How are the tariffs going?
Nay.
Nice. I know. Just breaking
I went to like
now.
an Apple store in Delaware and just started buying things in case.
Oh, yeah. I bought a new computer because I'm like, this is going to be double the price.
I got new microphones, and I upgraded my phone a couple weeks ago because I was like, well, we'll see. But he did drop those tariffs to 30% with China now, which is still too much. All right, yay or nay, housing prices?
They're always a nay for me. I mean, I live in New York. It's horrible.
It is.
It's just been like a bitch. It's been bad for a while, though. I can't blame this one just on Trump.
True.
Yay or nay, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni lawsuit?
I'm pro Blake. I know that sounds weird. No, not many people are, but like, I feel like she got slimed so hard. And there's like a whole media industrial complex. Like I keep saying it over and over again, that same phrase, but like to slime women, they're like just hated on the internet. So maybe Blake hasn't been like perfect in this, but like rarely do people handle human interactions perfectly, especially when it involves a boss. But I just think like the way that she's being like destroyed and how much the internet loves to hate women, it bothers me a lot.
We should have you back for an update on this because I feel like I tried to keep out of this topic and now I'm deeply in it, but it's like a whole other episode to go through the whole thing.
You can't help it. It draws you in.
I hate that this has become like a political thing and also, I mean, largely in part thanks to Candace Owens pulling people in through her coverage of this case, but it really shouldn't be political. This is like such a workplace issue that has now become like a culture war thing, which drives me crazy.
Blake doesn't help herself. She's not the perfect victim, but no one is. Who is the? That's what I hate.
Yeah. It's also like her husband's involved. Like it's so much more than just like her. And like now Taylor Swift's getting subpoenaed.
I know.
And
it's too much.
I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes.
All right, last one. Making news for good news, yay or nay? Do you think it's important to force good news stories into the overall coverage?
Listen, I like to hear whiffs of good stuff. I heard on SNL that New York is the happiest place of all cities. I don't know if that's true. I mean, it was on Saturday Night Live, so probably not.
Well, it's because
that sounds like it's a lie.
Yeah, I hear things from time to time that sound happy, but I don't think we should be placating ourselves or others into like delusions of happiness. True. Like that sounds like propaganda, and we get enough of that.
Facts.
Occasionally, there's a good news story. Like,
oh yeah, that's fair. Oh yeah, like good news. But
good news.
I don't want. But like, I wouldn't want to tell people like things are better than you think, America.
Oh no, things are bad, America. And also, this cool science thing happened. Well, what didn't we get to ask a journalist question? Is there anything that we didn't get to talk about today that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, me? Oh, thanks for asking. I feel like we hit a lot of interesting topics. I mean, this airplane that Trump is gonna inherit.
Yay or nay, the $400 million flying palace.
Yeah, it looks dope, but it's probably covered in bugs.
That was my question for you. With your friends in aviation, did they, or, I don't know if you've like started to look into this, but my first question is like, okay, so what's the security piece of that? Like, how do you know that there's not a giant speakerphone underneath the carpeting installed in all of like the seats?
How do you situation room?
Yeah. Like, how do they? I don't know. It just seems like you don't accept the flying object that your president flies through the air in from a foreign country.
No.
Also, as it moves, they could track it as well. Like, it could be it could purposely include something that would make it fall. Like, to take out the president and all of his senior staff would completely weaken America on the world stage. We could be completely collapsed. Like, we should not be on anything that is like foreign made. It has to be completely debugged, probably taken apart and put back together. So add another $100 million to do that. It's just like, it's such a bad look. It's such a bad grift look. Like, even Laura Loomer is saying this looks bad. Also, you lost Laura Loomer, someone who said she will take a bullet for Trump.
Tara Palmeri, thank you for being here. I'm sure you'll be a frequent guest here on the American Fever Dream as we continue to navigate the pitfalls of America. Tell folks where they can find you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I've been fans of both of yours. So you can find me at Tara Palmeri. That's at TaraPalmeri, only one I, on YouTube. And now I've got the Tara Palmeri Show where you can listen to the YouTube shows on audio. So that's on Spotify. That's on Apple. Tara Palmeri Show. All the fun in my head and really focusing on news and politics. But yeah, I'd love to have you guys on too.
She's on Substack.
Yes, I'm on Substack. The Red Letter. How could I forget?
Yes.
The Red Letter. I write a column with exclusive news, and you can get it straight to your inbox if you sign up.
Perfect.
So thank you.
And you've all got to watch the Lindy Li episode. And then the Steve Schmidt conversation that followed it, because I thought it was really important to, especially for some Democrats to hear.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, until next time, I'm V Spear.
And I'm Sami Sage.
And this is American Fever Dream.
Good night.